Welcome back to On the Money with financial advisor Ryan Wheelis. Ryan, I want to be very clear about this, especially as we're coming in from the bottom of the hour. People just heard news. They just heard traffic and weather. That estate planning is not just what we're leaving for the kids or the grandkids. Estate planning, in my opinion, has become what I have learned, that it's about protecting what we have during our retirement years. There are access to accounts, there are beneficiary designations that are things that happen. It was funny if we go back to the beginning of our radio program, you were talking about a friend whose home got hit by lightning. Our house got hit by lightning when we were little kids. Same thing, hit by the chimney. Now, it didn't burn down. What happened is our chimney exploded. It exploded into the brand new pool, so we had to re-cement the pool and so forth in the back. But the preparing for the unexpected things, I'm not saying everybody's going to get hit by lightning, but I hate to say it, things like strokes happen or heart attacks, or we become disabled in different ways and we're unable to make decisions for ourselves. Now we need to have different pieces of paper in place so our spouse, our kids, our family, our executives are able to help us while we're in retirement. Estate planning isn't just for the stuff we're leaving, is it?
No, man. It's just not. There's more strokes are happening lately, and whether you believe that's from the COVID vaccine or not, I'm not trying to get in that conversation. But so if God forbid I have a stroke and I become incapacitated, well, man, I've got a securities license, I've got an insurance license, I've got a fiduciary duty to clients to update who's running the company and steering the ship, and there's powers of attorney that need to be in place to handle all that stuff. And I'm not even dead yet. I'm still here. Right? So it's not just about, as you said, leaving what you're going to leave behind. It's also about the potential things that could happen in the interim. And ultimately, what you're trying to do from an estate plan is to protect from creditors, predators, lawsuits, potentially divorce. That's what you're trying to do. Okay? And if you don't have a plan in place and the bad things happen, man, I can tell you, it's going to be the biggest headache your loved ones around you are ever going to have. It really and truly is.
Well, speaking of the headache for loved ones here, let me give you another example. This came from a live event that I was at of yours. Folks came up. They always talk to me afterwards, and they said, great couple. I mean, just literally a perfect couple for help. They were young 60s, professionals. He had run a business, and he purchased the building, ran his business out of it. They had two other real estate properties that were rentals for other people. I asked them about the occupants. They said they're pretty good occupants. I said, do you know if they're going to stay there forever? They're like, we don't know. And then, of course, they had the third property, which was the home that they lived in. They have 3 kids. And they said, a few years ago, we decided we needed to put together a trust. And we named all 3 kids in charge of the trust. And we put the real estate inside the trust. I said, okay, well, how are you going to create income for your retirement? I set aside the business aspect of it. I said, we can value that later. We'll talk about that later. But the wife was thinking, well, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to sell maybe one of the properties or if we're going to keep them. We understand that children can receive a step up in basis. So they did a little bit of homework. Okay, good thinking there. But sometimes a little bit of information can be cloudy. The step up in basis is great, but was there a plan to sell the real estate to create income for themselves? Is it to leave 3 different properties that they were going to give each to one of the kids? Because here's the thing, aren't all 3 kids now having to make a decision jointly after mom and dad go?
Yes. And in that scenario, Spike, I know you're talking about, by the way, the as much as they're trying to do the right things, they're not realizing that what they're doing is setting their kids up for a complete and total disaster. Okay, so let's just say of those 3 kids that 2 of them are doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they don't need the money. One of them's not doing well. One of them makes $1 and spends 10. Okay. Well, what's going to happen is if mom and dad don't take a few more steps to figure out who's going to make the decision of whether they sell the properties or not, what's going to happen is all 3 of them have to agree to sell the property to get the capital. Well, when all 3 of them don't agree, Whoever
Mm-hmm.
doesn't agree is going to be the outcast, right? Because we all don't love not getting our way. I mean, it is what it is, especially if there's money involved, then it multiplies that. Not to mention add in the fact that mom and dad are gone. Okay. So the guidance of mom and dad's energy, so to speak, to keep that family unit together is no longer there. And ultimately what happens in this scenario is they're going to create massive infighting. And the result of that is hey, your kids don't get together at Christmas anymore, or Thanksgiving, or holidays are weird, and family traditions break down and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, Spike, is that if those things are important to you, you're trying to preserve those things, which is why you're putting a trust into place in the first place, right? And that's why you're doing it. Yet what you don't realize is you may be setting yourself up. You're actually hurting yourself by trying to help yourself by not having things set up appropriately.
I've heard of this concept of a kind of a corporate executor. Like, should they have somebody maybe completely on the outside who isn't one of the three kids to manage over? I don't know. Is that overcomplicating it? Or should it just be up to mom and dad to go, hey, we need to sit down with our 3 adult children and figure it out? Because another layer could be, does one of the other kids buy that one out?
But bro, it's just such a double-edged thing. I don't want my kids realizing what I have too soon. Okay. And the reason why is I think if kids realize that they're coming into a large inheritance, and folks, I'm not saying my kids are coming into a large inheritance. Okay. I'm saying if they realize they are, then does that somehow remove their motivation to go out into the world and be successful? Because they don't have to, because mom and dad are rich and they're just going to get this money. Okay. So there's a fine line between that aspect, but also the aspect of, hey, yes, we've got 3 kids here. John and Sue are real good with money. Bobby's not so much good with money. So what we're going to do is when in the trust document, we're going to give Bobby and Sue the power to make the decision to sell the property. And Johnny won't have any input on it whatsoever. Whatever the scenario is, you got to walk through it, right? Because in those situations,
we were listening to there's a new friend of ours, and I appreciate that we all talk to, we go to these conferences and we share ideas with other people. There was a gentleman, he's a financial advisor, but he's started as an estate planning attorney. And people just kept asking him all these kinds of financial questions. So he kind of did the reverse engineering of what we do, came from financial services to, hey, we need to understand estate planning. He was there in the estate planning world, said, all right, well, let me figure out the whole rest of this stuff. But the biggest takeaway that I took from his podcast was equal is not always fair. Equal is not always fair. You leave it equally to all 3 of the kids, it might not end up being fair because one of them has more of a need, or then the 2 other kids have to figure, all right, well, you have more liquid cash. Or can you buy out our little brother or sister and give them the cash? Or do we? Yeah. Is this where the pressure is on the parents to actually have to come up with a plan so the kids don't have to figure it out later?
Well, I just think the level of depth that people need to go into on this stuff, they don't do it, Spike, because it causes infighting. I have some clients, I love them dearly. If they hear the show, they know who I'm talking about. I'm almost tempted to say their name. I've been on them for so long.
Don't do it.
I'm not going to, but they have been fighting about who's going to get what, and they have a blended family. There are substantial assets, and they have no estate planning other than the beneficiaries point to each other. Okay. And I'm like, okay, if both of you die in a common accident, do you know what's going to happen? Now it's going to be left to the estate of, and the state has a plan for you. They have an estate plan for you, and it's not going to be good. And, it's just, you need to have a proper plan, folks. It's that simple. If you don't know what a proper estate plan looks like, come in and talk to us. Okay. I will tell you right now, I am a financial advisor. I know a lot about estate planning, though. A lot. Okay. We have a very tight network, close network of professionals we work with to help craft estate plans. Oftentimes we go back and forth with the estate planning attorney's office to make sure it's right. We work very closely to make sure all of your beneficiaries point to on your accounts, point to your plan, and all those things. So whether you got a plan, you need a plan, reach out to us. There could be some holes or gaps that Spike and I are talking about right now, and what you think is going to happen with your dollars and your family may not wind up happening that way. So let's make sure it does. Reach out to us. Join the show right now. Call us 844-944-7555. That number again is 844-944-7555. You can also text the word plan to 21,000. Again, pull out your iPhone or your Android, text plan, PLAN, to 21,000. That's PLAN to 21000. We've got more estate planning talk coming right back after the break.